Hey, I want to do a narration over a real-time video, but in this case, the camera is not on the iPad directly. What it is it's a screen recording of the iPad, of what I'm doing on the iPad, and I will narrate it so you know what I'm doing. It's not speeded up. It's not time lapse. It's real time. The only thing is you don't see my hand. I love this. Okay, let's go right to it. All right, so there is the girl that I want to demonstrate how I painted. I did not use the mountainous background, and I'll explain in a moment. What I wanted to, I'll just explain right now. What I wanted to do was paint this girl on a paddleboard in a location here in Florida, obviously with mountains in the back. You can tell that's not Florida. So what I did first was you can see what I'm sketching in right there. I'm using the dry brush, and I'm sampling the colors from the photograph, from the reference photo. I'm sampling those colors, and then I'm going to the opposite side of the color wheel. And that's my way of kind of laying a little bit of complementary color down to the painting. I sometimes I'll just brush it in. If I'm doing traditional paint, obviously I'm going to brush it in. But if I'm doing a digital painting, which this is on iPad, then I will quite often brush it in and just kind of drag it in. And in this case, I just turned the whole background into a complementary color. So, all right, at this point, I'm looking for the picture that I want to use, the reference photo that I want to use for Florida. What happened was, there we go. What happened was, you see that scene right there. When I say we, Robin and I went down to Silver Springs, and it's January, so it's kind of cool to see people out in the water because, well, it's Florida, so it's not that unusual. But they were paddleboarding. I think they were on a tour. I think one of those guys was a tour guide, and the other three were probably paying to be given lessons or something. Anyway, I liked the scene. I took some photos of them, but I was using my camera. I'm sorry, I was using my phone and not a real camera with a lens. And so when I looked at the people in the resulting photograph, which is what you're looking at, I was a little bit I was torn between whether to paint them looking just symbolic of people, or if I really wanted them to look like people. And I know either way it's going to work. But the other thing I didn't really like about this picture was the angle of the camera, and where you stand at this point near the river. You're up on a deck, and so you're kind of forced to be looking down unless you're in a boat. Like if I was down in the water in a canoe or something, then I would have had a better angle. Either way, I was just wanting to have a better view of the paddleboarders, a better angle, and a closer look at them. So what I did was I used the Florida landscape, sort of, kind of. I'll explain that, and then I went back to the picture you saw earlier of the girl on the paddleboard. So here you can see I am placing in the color that I want for the sky. It's the typical way I do a sky if there's no intent on real clouds. If I just want a blue sky, which it was a very beautiful cloud-free day yesterday, or 2 days ago, whenever we went there. But anyway, with a cloud-free sky, you start with a darker blue, and then you go down and you make it lighter, so it's more white. One of the things people often make a mistake with in skies is they oversaturate the blue. The sky may look as beautiful blue as the bottom of that photograph right there. in the water, which is clearly a reflection of the actual sky. It's just not in the photo. And sometimes that's really unsaturated also. It might look rich and deep blue, but you got to be really careful with the blues you pick for the sky. Unless, of course, you're intentionally trying to do something with a very saturated color. There's nothing wrong with changing. There's nothing wrong with even doing a color that wouldn't even be in the sky. I can't even think of what color wouldn't be, because I've seen red skies, orange skies, blue skies, black skies, of course, at night, gray skies. I guess I've seen yellow a bit, red, orange. And, have I ever seen a green sky? Maybe I haven't seen a green sky. All right, well, anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm basically using the dry brush on Procreate, and I'm sketching in the landscape, more or less. I'm not, as you can tell, there's no sky in that photo. But I wanted there to be a sky in this picture because I wanted the girl who I showed you earlier. I wanted her to be standing in such a way that the sky would be behind her, or at least behind the upper part of her. And so that's what I'm doing here. And do you know, everything for me is an experiment when I'm doing art. Everything in life is not an experiment, but everything I do in art is an experiment. So I experiment with colors. As you can see, I experiment with brushes. I experiment with placement and with composition. And in the end, if it's something I like, and then it is. It's interesting how art will affect people differently, and I always think that art is anything that stimulates some kind of a sensory reply or sensory reaction. And so, in painting, that's what you're really intending to do, is to create some kind of a visual that is pleasing, or if you're in the mood to be more controversial, maybe something that's disturbing. Those years for me are pretty much past. When I was younger, I might have involved myself in painting a picture or writing a song. I wrote more songs than I painted pictures back when I was younger. But you just, whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through, is usually what you end up creating, whether it's a painting or a sculpture or a song. It's the creative spirit that you probably are. If you're watching this video, it's something who you are. It's something built into you. It's something you just will never not have. You'll always have it. And one of the cool things about the digital world that we are all now living in is this: you can do paintings on an iPad. I have never done a screen recording like this before. I've done the time lapse that is recorded in the Procreate app. They have a time lapse recording going on if it's turned on, and then later on you can play it back, and you can have a 5-minute video that shows how you painted something. But it's not in real time, and it doesn't show all of the choices. Like in this screen grab, you can see every time I grab a color from the photograph, that's what that little circle is with the two half circles, and it shows me that I'm grabbing a dark green or a blue or whatever color, and I'm grabbing it from the photograph. I'm also moving the photograph around. I'm going to, later on, you'll see I enlarge it. I get very close to the girl's face, for example, or to her arms. And I also manipulate the canvas, the drawing, the painting area that's on the right. You can also see, let's see, in this screen grab, you can see on the left side those two white areas, like white buttons. The top one is a slider. Yeah, the two sliders. The top one is the size of the brush, and you'll probably see me use it a lot in this painting. And the bottom one is the opacity. I use it some. I don't use it off. Well, I do use it a lot, but in this painting, I don't think I use it that much. I just kept it pushed all the way up, which is where it is now. Meaning that the end result is that the paint will be more opaque. There, you see, I'm grabbing the dark areas in the woods behind the river there in the photograph, and then I'm applying those same colors to the painting on the right. It's important for me to tell you that I did not trace anything. I did not have any overlay or anything like that. I'm just sketching in, if you will, in paint, the scene, the place that I want that girl to be paddleboarding on. Does that make sense? See right there. Okay, I'm grabbing the dry brush, and now I just grabbed, the turpentine brush. I went from the dry, and just there, that little piece right there is where I changed the size. Well, there I changed the opacity. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Let's see what I did with that. I probably was working on the sky. It's probably hard to tell. Oh, there's some of the trees, and there was a palm tree right in the middle, and that's what I'm working on right there. There's a palm tree. I changed later on. You'll see that I got rid of that because, well, you'll see the girl's left hand is right up against it, and I debated back and forth whether I should keep it like that or take away the greenery in the middle of the picture. And you'll see at the end that I took it away. It made for a better composition. It's something. It's artist's prerogative. Is that the word? Anyway, it's artist's choice. Those light beige areas in the photograph, I'm assuming, are either sandy areas across the river or maybe even paved areas or concrete areas. I don't know. I don't know what was across the river there, but anyway. So I'm working on the painting in the background. You can already see it. You can see that it looks like a typical Florida landscape right there with palm trees, and if you look really close at it, you would see that I painted no palm trees. I painted no beach. I painted no concrete, no sand. All I did was do brush strokes with color. That's all I did. Right there, I grabbed some light yellow green, and you can see I'm adding it to the left side of the tree. The girl in the picture that we'll do in a little bit with the paddleboard has the light coming at her from the left. So I wanted to make sure the trees and everything in the background also had the light coming from the left. I ended up not using that tree, but it's what I'm doing here. Just sketching in just different areas, and I took some very light color right there, and I'm just touching it up. There's a little bit more of a lime green, I guess. Just touching it in here and there. And I'm using at this point, I'm still using the dry brush. When I get to the girl, that's when I start using the turpentine brush. So at this point, I duplicated the layer. And when you duplicate the layer, sometimes you have to make a decision. You see how it got richer? Okay, so, and then I merged the two together because I liked it. But this is what I do. I will duplicate a layer, and if it helps it, if it makes it better, if I like it, then I keep it. If I don't, then I don't. Then I just keep it one layer. But sometimes it's kind of a digital trick to just duplicate a layer and then let the two layers exist together, and it gives a richer feel to the picture. But it's not always a good thing. It's a judgment call on your part when you're creating a painting digitally and you want to use that technique or that method. I use it a lot, but again, every single time I use it, I have to make a decision whether to keep the the two layers together or to keep them without. Sometimes if it's a face, for example, it's better not to double them up because it becomes too rich. It becomes too saturated, and it's better sometimes with a face. But then again, each case you have to kind of weigh it and use your artistic sense of what is good and what you like and what you don't like. All right, so here you can see painting in the foreground water, the lighter colored water. I know in advance that much of this is going to be covered by the girl, so I'm not so worried about making it look completely the way the photograph looks in this picture, but I wanted something in the background. And just to point out again, the orange undercoat, the orange underpainting, or the orange complementary background, it does make it pop out a bit. I like that. In real painting, I do the same thing. Not always, but lately I feel like I've been doing it a lot. So I'm going through a period in my artistic development, I guess, where I use that technique a lot. And you don't have to. It's everybody's got their own choice. I like the idea that you can do one way one time and another way another time. It's kind of like, when somebody asks, which is your favorite medium? And the answer is usually the one I'm not working on right now, right? Because if you're working with digital, it gets to be, I don't know, it's kind of like driving a car. If you drive a standard transmission car and you say to yourself, next car is going to be an automatic. And then if you're driving an automatic, you say, oh, the next car is going to be a standard shift. And I don't know if you can relate to that or not. Or maybe you can relate better to musical instruments if you play the guitar and the piano and the saxophone and you're playing a lot of one of them. Somebody says, which is your favorite instrument? You might say, well, it's the one I'm going to play next because I'm playing this one like every day. So, and again, maybe none of that is relatable to you. But with art, I often feel like when somebody says to me, which is your favorite medium? If I've been working for the last 5 days on a painting with acrylic paint or oil paint, then I'll say, oh, I love, and just name any other one, any one but that one. I'll say, oh, I love watercolors, or I love pen and ink, or I love charcoal, And in today's world, you throw in digital. I love digital. So, and I do love digital. One of the things I love about it is you can take it anywhere. So on the iPad. If you have a Cintiq and you're working off of Photoshop, if it's a big Cintiq, you probably can't take it everywhere, but you can take those small ones with you. You just take your laptop, your MacBook, whatever, and you go someplace with your little 16-inch and go for it. All right, now let's go to the girl. Here we go. Back to the girl on the paddleboard in the mountainous area. I got the photo of the girl off of a video. I think it was a video that was teaching how to do paddleboarding. But what I liked about her was the fact that she was completely in the shadows with just a little bit of light on her left side. And it just looked to me like a really good opportunity to make a painting. And since I couldn't do I didn't want to use the reference photo that I took because you couldn't really see those people. They were too small. This works perfectly. All right, what I'm doing here, I am using just a dark brown. And I am just rough sketching in the girl's silhouette, if you will. The reason I do that is so that I have an idea where things will go when I end up painting her. I do that to kind of work it out, almost to put clay on the table. If I was a sculptor, I'm putting clay on the table and moving it around until it feels like what I want it to feel like, and then I'll start to work on the details. And you can see that I've already made some mistakes. I have her legs at too much of an angle. I have her legs too thick. I have it's not her lower part of her body is not lined up properly with the upper part of her body. But all those things are not of concern to me. I mean, I do concern myself with them a little bit, but I don't worry too much. So I just kind of laid in there. So you can see right now that the silhouette that I laid in with the dark brown is just a mess. It's just a bunch of gob of paint. Now what I'm doing is I'm sampling the colors off of the girl. There are just some very subtle differences in the darkness of the shadows on her face and her hair. And I want to capture that. And in traditional paint, you would experiment a little bit with mixing on the palette. And in digital paint, you do the same thing. The only difference is with digital paint, you can sample the photograph or something else if you choose to. So yeah, I'm just grabbing little highlights from her hair and the shadows from her face, and there you go. Some of the light that's shining through the underside of her hair, and it's really what I'm trying to do is the part that's going to make it look like there is light shining on her hair and highlighting the hair as it flies in the wind, as it blows in the wind, as she's outdoors enjoying her paddleboard. So you can see in the photograph, you can see her sunglasses, and you can see the shape of her lips and her chin, and basically and her forehead, and the way the hair is parted in the middle and cascades across her head. So those are the things I'm looking for. I'm not looking to create a real detailed face. Just taking the painting and try to replicate what the photograph shows as far as the silhouette of the girl with those highlights. And I am using the turpentine brush. You can use the oil brush. One thing to note in this part of the video, I'm so close to the painting, I've zoomed in so much, you can see the background is just a bunch of brush strokes. In traditional art, that is normally called Impressionism. You might even go so far as to say it's abstract a bit in the background. But it's more impressionistic, and the reason I really prefer the impressionistic label is because when you step back, if you're in a room, if this is a 20 by 16 inch, 20 inches by 16 inches in size, and it's up on a wall in a nice frame, there's a good chance that you won't be up against it. You'll be sitting across the room on a couch or something, and you'll be looking at the painting, and it will look like what it's supposed to look like. However, if you get up and you look at the painting close, you will see all those brush strokes, and you'll say, wow, it doesn't even look like trees. Wow, that doesn't even look like what I thought it was. And that's kind of what Impressionism is to me. When you look at some of the work by Monet or Manet, both of them, that's kind of what they did. They did loose brush strokes, and they created these beautiful paintings. And the beauty is in the composition, the beauty is in the subject matter, and the beauty is in the choice of colors also. So, and the subtlety that is often in their paintings. If you think about somebody like Van Gogh, he was impressionistic in a different way. He was, in a way, in many of his paintings, it's almost like pointillism with paint. Um, and I guess that's one of the things that puts him in the genius category, or everybody's got their own opinion. But his work is beautiful. One of the things that just I find just a shame regarding Van Gogh is that he died and never had sold any. Well, he sold one to his brother, I think. Anyway, it wasn't until after he died, I think it was his brother's wife, I think, who was selling his paintings after he died, and that's why we know his name. It's because somebody after he died decided to sell his work, and we should be grateful for that. Okay, so now you see she's got this beautifully defined muscular arm. The only way we know it's a beautifully defined muscular arm is the way the sunlight cascades across her arm, her shoulder, her muscles. So that's what I have to be very careful of here. If I want to replicate that look, I have to paint it in such a way that it does in the painting the same thing it does on the photograph. So that's what I'm doing here. And I'm intentionally going closer with both the painting and with the reference photo so that I can have a better look at it. I think at this point I realized I made a mistake in the placement of her shoulder and her arm, so you'll see I'm correcting it. And there's two ways to correct it. You can use the eraser, or you can use you can just paint over it, which is probably what I did here. So what I do too is I eyeball the other things in the painting. So I could see that her chin was a little bit higher than the top of her shoulder, which of course would make sense, right? But in the painting, as you can tell, it's not. So I later on will correct that, and everything that gets placed into the painting becomes a reference point for something else, and that's kind of how I balance the painting. That's how I decide where something goes. I don't measure it out. I don't block it out or use a graph. Although I'm not opposed to any method. It doesn't really matter. I think the method you use is your method, and the method you use is nothing that you should stay away from because somebody says that's cheating or because you feel it's cheating. I don't think so, because ultimately it's the painting. Ultimately, if you are in a recording studio doing a song and you want a violin part, but you don't have a violinist that you know or that you can call on or that you can afford, I know it's not a real violin, but you can use a synthetic violin, and in the end product is what you're going for. Same thing with art, with painting art. You're going for a look. You're going for an image. If you're illustrating for an editorial piece, whether it's a newspaper or a news agency, or if you're illustrating for a children's book, all of those things, you take so many different things into consideration. If I was going to categorize this one, it's more of an editorial illustration that is done in a painterly way. That's what this is. This is an editorial illustration done in a painterly way. So why is it editorial? There is no article written about the paddleboarding girl or about paddleboarding in general. But if you were on assignment and you were commissioned to do a painterly illustration for a magazine or for an internet article or for a TV thing, and they wanted to use it, this would be more editorial. I don't see that this is very symbolic of anything. It's just a free, I want to get out there and do that kind of a painting. So that's kind of what I was going for. All right, now I want to point out something that I mentioned earlier. You see in the reference photo, her entire upper body is up against a blue sky. In my painting, it's not up. She's up against the trees in the background. Especially her hand, it's up against the upper part of that palm tree in the background. Well, I will tell you that did bother me the whole way through, and I kept debating about whether to remove it. And ultimately I did, but you won't see that I did till the very end. And I didn't have the screen recorder on when I did it, so you'll see that I did that before I finalized the picture and uploaded it to the places that I have my art, which by the way is my name.com. I'll put that at the end too. And yes, I do art for a living, and I do sell prints, and I'm retired from radio, so I just do it to supplement what we have here, to pay for the oatmeal. Pay for the oatmeal. Pay for breakfast. Yeah, so just, hey, and that's an important topic too. If you're an artist, how do you do this and make a living with this? Well, you can sell paintings. That's one way. Or you can hire yourself out as a commercial artist, and whether it's freelance or working for a studio. One of the things that I like about the art opportunities, the employment opportunities for artists in the year 2023, is that it's exactly the opposite of what I was told it would be when I was in school back in the, I guess this would have been the late 60s, early 70s. I graduated from high school in 73, so, and it was probably up in New York in one of the schools. And in fact, I have a little story from one of the classes. So I didn't take art class per se. In certain grades, you just have art. Whether I took it as an elective, I don't remember, but I do remember hearing this in the art class. Again, remember, this is the late 60s. The art teacher said that most of you will be working on Madison Avenue. Now, I grew up in New York, so for those who don't know, Madison Avenue, at that time anyway, was a place in New York where a lot of the advertising agencies were. So that's what the teacher was basically saying, was that most of you will be working in advertising. Most of you will not be the next Van Gogh. Most of you will not be the next Michelangelo. Most of you will be doing illustrations for newspaper, for catalogs, for magazines. And then the teacher said that photography is taking over, and there's a good chance that artists won't even be necessary in the future. So there you go. There's the wrong statement. And then it went farther than that. The teacher said that the only thing artists are used for on Madison Avenue in the advertising world is underwear, undergarments, panties and bras and undershorts and things like that. The reason was, and this gives you an idea of what the times were like, is that the newspapers and the magazines, they didn't print models, photos of models wearing underwear. So what they did was they printed underwear as if it was on a model, but not on a model. So can you picture this now? That was what I was being told. The art that I would be doing if I had a career in art would be drawing or painting floating underwear. Floating. As if somebody was like the Invisible Man is standing in these things, but there is no person, there is no image, it's just the underwear. I just thought, well, that sounds boring. And it was at that moment that I decided I did not want to pursue art as a career. And I think the teacher was being honest. I think that's what the teacher believed. And there was no reason why the teacher wouldn't believe that, because that's the way the world was at that time. So I'm not saying we were taught wrong. It's just that the teacher, and I'm reluctant to say he or she, because I'll be honest, I'm not sure if it was a man teacher or a lady teacher, but that's besides the point. So fast forward to now, and art is used everywhere. Movies hire artists to do environments, right? Look at Laura Price. Look her up, Laura Price, Lulu Sketches. Look at the beautiful work she does for motion pictures, for Paramount, for Disney. She just does some beautiful work. Look at any video game. Look at the artwork in a video game. It's outstanding. Look at some of the animated features that are on. Watch some videos with Aaron Blaise. I think he's about my age actually, but he was an animator with Disney, and he's just outstanding. But the point I'm trying to make is how art really didn't just dwindle down to sketching floating underwear. Art really does have a place in the world that we live in today. Now, with the advent of artificial intelligence art, who knows, maybe things will become less lucrative if you want art as a career. I don't know. I'll probably, if I live long enough, maybe I'll find out. But maybe, you do what you can do, right? All right, so here you can see I'm kind of sculpting with the eraser. I'm taking the parts of her legs that I thought looked a little bit too wide, and tapering them down, and just kind of re-evaluating everything. You can see that she's already looking like the girl in the photo. And basically I'm just drawing, painting in what I need to paint in so that she looks like she's standing there. I think I made her a little too squatty, so you'll see in a little bit that I did lasso the lower portion of her body and stretch it out just a little bit. Again, it's a tool that you have available in digital art that you obviously don't have in traditional art. In traditional art, if you were unhappy with something, you paint over it and you just do it again. That's the only way you can do it. If it's watercolor, you basically have to start over, because there's not a whole lot of painting over in watercolor. Using gouache as a way to paint over watercolor is one idea. All right, here, what I'm doing here is I'm taking that lasso tool and I'm going to stretch her out, her lower part. See there? Make her legs a little bit longer. Just pull it down a little bit, and then push it up so I don't have that gap there in her belly. I think I did that a second time also later on. So there, that's pretty cool. I'm just kind of re-evaluating everything and making sure I have the girl the way I want her. I didn't finish the paddle yet that she's holding, but mostly I'm looking at the light hitting her feet at this point, and trying to give some semblance of toes and shadows around the toes. Yeah, you can pretty much see what I'm doing without me narrating it. Well, it is January, and I'm in Florida, so yesterday it didn't feel like winter at all, not here. I know that in the rest of the country there's a lot of snow in the news and cold temperatures in the news, but I'm in Florida, and it is what Florida is. Sometimes Florida gets a little cold, but yesterday was beautiful. So just kind of doing the final things on her feet to make them look like feet. I'm not too concerned about it, because I know that I'm going to be painting in the paddleboard itself in just a little bit. By the way, if you I have watched this far. First of all, thank you for watching. I don't consider myself to be an expert on any of these things, but there are some experts who do make videos that you might want to consider watching. There's a guy named Angry Miko, Mikko. Oh my gosh, this guy is absolutely phenomenal. If you want to watch somebody using Procreate on an iPad on YouTube, go to Angry Miko, Mikko. All right, there you go. I'm taking her legs, and I make them just a little bit longer, and I shifted them a little bit to the left. And yeah, I just felt like that was a better look. I don't know if it accurately is a representation of the girl in the photo. It sort of kind of looks like it, though, doesn't it? All right, now I just sampled the light on the left edge of the paddleboard, and I'm painting it in. Yeah, I wasn't sure how that paddleboard looked. It was a little bit kind of not easy to see in the picture, but I can see it enough. And I painted the lower part. I mean, the spoon part, the part that grabs the water and helps propel you through the water. I have never done this, by the way. I've never done paddleboarding. It looks like it might be a cool thing. I'll tell you this, and I don't know if you've been thinking this already, but in Florida there are alligators in the water. Now, that has never kept me out of the water, especially when I was younger. I used to go tubing down the river every summer, but not just once. I mean, I was at that river all the time. Not this one, not the river in the picture, which is the Silver River. I would always go to the Rainbow River, which is closer to where I lived at that time in Denellen. But many times during each year, I would go tubing down the river in an inner tube, and it was back when it was really kind of primitive. There was no really exit ramp. There was nothing manicured. There was no pavement, no concrete. It was just a dirt area. You got out of the river when you were done, and you hopefully had a ride waiting for you because you floated, I don't know, 5 or 6 miles down the river. Now it's all manicured. There are services to drive you back to your car, and you can pay for the tubes themselves. Back then you had to get an inner tube, like from a gas station, and just float down the river. Yeah, I don't do it that much anymore. It's one of the things, when you become older, you stop doing some of the things, and I shouldn't. I should do these things. I'm afraid if I get a paddleboard, though, that I will just fall off or something. I don't know. But it is a beautiful thing to watch. It's a very graceful. Do you call it a sport? I don't know. It's a very graceful activity. It's just fun to watch. And the people we were watching in Silver Springs, the first photo I showed you, one of the young ladies looked like she was having a hard time standing, and she basically sat on the paddleboard for a little while, and I felt like that's what I would be doing. I'd be sitting. Well, I guess you could get a canoe if you didn't want to stand. All right, here's the part where I am painting in the paddleboard, the dark area first under the girl's feet, and I am using a separate layer for this. I'm painting the layer underneath the girl, but above the water, so that I don't have to worry about painting over her feet. And it's just basically what it is, just a black area. And then I sampled the white color from the side of the paddleboard, and I'll be sketching that in now. And then, of course, you have to consider the shadows and the ripples in the water, and those are the final things that I'll be doing. You'll see me doing them. And then the very, very final thing is to remove that tree in the middle that's behind her hand. As I look at it now, it's like, what was I thinking? But you know, I'm glad I got rid of it before I actually published the picture. So if you have an iPad, oh, I also use an Apple Pencil. The way it's described is Apple Pencil, just second generation. I'll put some links under the videos so you can go to Amazon and buy one. The Apple Pencil is not a cheap pencil. However, I would recommend it. It works beautifully. I love it. There's no latency. There's no. It is beautiful. It's like working. It's like working with a pencil. It's the iPad. I'm sorry. The Procreate app makes it like paint. So you have to, it's like a little bit. It's not really a learning curve. It's a getting used to curve. You have to get used to it as a brush, because obviously it's not a brush. There are no bristles at all. But if you use it enough, and I use it all the time, you will start to get a hold of the whole idea that this is a brush digitally, and all those things that were in your way will go away. All right, I'm 48 minutes into a 46 minutes into a 53-minute video, according to my clock here. So I got about 7 minutes more to go. Let's look at what I'm doing with these layers here. And you see how I move one layer to another place. So, oh, that must have been for the surface of the water. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. The surface of the water in the foreground needed to be more detailed, needed to have more reflections and more ripples, more darks and lights. And so that's what I'm doing here. Just taking some light colors and creating the reflective areas on the water, and then some dark areas to create the shadows. And there you go. It's hard to see because it's so small. But that's one of the cool things too. You can make something small. In traditional art, what you have to do is you have to step back. Or what a lot of artists do is they'll set up a mirror, and they can look in the mirror and see what their art looks like from a distance, or a simulated distance. And that's kind of what this enables you to do when you shrink it down like this. Okay, what I did there is I duplicated the girl. I flipped the image, and this is going to be how I create the reflection in the water. There's not much of an area for reflection. If you look in the reference photo, there isn't even a reflection. But I thought it would be nice on still water, because the river that I'm putting her in is pretty still, pretty the surface is pretty smooth. So what I did just then is I took that upside down lower part of her legs, and I reduced the opacity so that it was translucent, not completely opaque. And then I erased everything that would be a solid place, so that the only place you see her reflection is in the water, which would make sense, right? So you'll notice that I'm erasing a lot of stuff here that does not need to be there, because those things are not being reflected in the water. And part of that is because I made a mistake earlier. I painted some water on the same layer as the girl, and so I have to get rid of some of those things. It doesn't matter when it's upright, but when I turned it upside down, you could really notice it. So, all right. So now I think what I do now, let's see, I'm going to get. Watch this. This is called. What is it called again? It's called liquefy. And can you see how, if you look real closely, see how I'm dragging the color left and right, and making it look like the reflection is being distorted by the water itself? That's a feature, a digital feature called liquefy, and you're basically just pushing pixels around to make it look like that, the way it looks. So it's not exactly a carbon copy of the the thing that's being reflected. Let's see what else I am going to do here. Just a few more things. I guess a few more white caps, like white reflective areas on the water. Let's see, I made another layer. Put it on the very top. And let's see what they do. Yeah, I'm just grabbing the white. And let's see. Making it smaller. Okay, that's a dark area, not a white area. And that's important too, because in addition to the reflection, there's also a shadow. And that's kind of the double thing you need to be aware of with water. There's usually a shadow as well as a reflection. Even water on water. A wave, for example, will cast a shadow on the water that it's in. If you're at the ocean, and take some photographs of the waves, and you'll have a great study tool to help you with that. Let's see. This is where I'm just adding little tiny areas of white to create the illusion that there's sunlight that is reflecting and sparkling off of some of the peaks in the little tiny ripples of the water. Water, it's a very satisfying thing to paint because you can't really get it wrong. You don't have to copy a photograph when you're painting water. You just have to get the feel of it. And same thing with the sky, same thing with clouds, same thing with anything distant, whether it's a skyline of buildings or a row of distant trees. Yeah. I hope you're enjoying the real-time aspect of this one. I know I have a lot of time-lapse videos, and the real-time videos that I have done are done with the camera over the iPad, and you see my hand. And when you see my hand, you're not really seeing what I'm doing. That's why I thought this would be a better way of doing this. And hopefully it's either entertaining or helpful or educational in some way. Again, I'm not trying. I never have tried to create a photographic-looking painting. What I want my paintings to look like is paintings. I call it painterly. I did not make up that word, by the way. That's the word that means it looks like paint. All right, so what I did here is I placed in the photograph that I first rendered from the art, just to show you that palm tree in the back behind her hand and how I didn't like it. And then here is the finished one, the one where I took away the palm tree, I took away some of the other trees and things in the background, and I placed her up against a brighter sky. So, and there's the finished painting. So thank you for watching, and if you could like this, that'll help me with the channel, or subscribe to the channel. I will put stuff up frequently, I hope, so that you can watch other things. And if you have any special requests, if I can help with anything, but please follow the links that I put in here if you want to get some of the stuff, and also find some of the artists that I referenced here: Laura Price, Angry Miko, Aaron Blaze. You might want to try Will Terry. You might want to try Jake Parker. You might want to try Lee White. You might want to try Andrew Tischler. Oh my God, this guy's great. Another one I like is I just thought of him. Did I say Angry Miko? Angry Miko. James Gurney. Oh my gosh, you gotta check out James Gurney. And there are so many others. I watch them, I learn from them, I'm entertained by them, and you will learn something from every one of them, and then I'm sure you'll find others as well. So, all right. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.